Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I've been managing this restaurant for 8 years, but there's one night I'll never forget. One that still makes my skin crawl. It was a slow Tuesday. The kind where the clock moves too slow, and the air smells like old coffee and fryer grease no matter how much you scrub. The dinner rush had come and gone, leaving behind a few stragglers nursing their meals in silence. That's when I noticed him. He was sitting in the corner booth, half shrouded in shadow. An old suit hung loose on his thin frame, the fabric wrinkled and discolored like it had been through one too many rainstorms. His hat sat low over his face, just enough that I couldn't make out his features. He'd been there since 7 p.m., ordered a single cup of coffee, never touched it. At first, I didn't think much of it, just another lonely guy looking for a place to sit. But the way he stared at the kitchen entrance unsettled me. His eyes never moved, never blinked, just fixed on that swinging metal door like he was expecting someone to walk through. By 10 p.m., the place had emptied out. He didn't move. By 11, the cook and the dishwasher had left, leaving me alone with him. By midnight, I decided enough was enough. I walked over, putting on my best customer service smile, the one I use for drunks and weirdos who stay past closing. "Sir, we're closing now." No response. His hands rested on the table, fingers twitching slightly. "Sir?" I leaned in closer, and that's when I finally saw his face. His skin was gray, not pale, not sickly, gray, like the color of old newspaper left in the rain. His lips were dry and cracked, pulled back in a near smile. But his eyes, his pupils were blown wide, so dark they swallowed the whites. And his breath, oh God, his breath. It smelled like something had crawled into his throat and died there. A sickly, rotting stench that made my stomach turn. I took a step back. My throat felt dry. "Are you okay?" His lips barely moved. I never left. The words scraped out of his mouth like rusted nails dragged over glass. Then the lights flickered. A harsh, blinding strobe of white and black, casting sharp, broken shadows across the walls. The air grew thick, pressing against my skin like invisible hands. Then came the sound, a deep, thudding crash from the kitchen. Then a scream. I jumped back, my heart slamming against my ribs. The scream was high-pitched, raw, like a wounded animal trapped in a steel cage. I spun toward the kitchen, breath coming fast and shallow. When I turned back to the booth, he was gone, vanished. The chair sat empty, the coffee cup untouched, a dark stain spreading from the rim. But the air smelled different now, heavy, damp, like old earth, like something buried. I didn't sleep that night, didn't even bother checking the kitchen. I locked up and got the hell out of there. The next morning, I forced myself to check the security footage, just to prove to myself that it had happened. I fast-forwarded through the night, watched myself cleaning tables, watched myself walking over to the booth, watched myself talking to nothing. The booth was empty. No man, no coffee cup, just me, standing there, speaking to the air, my expression twisted in confusion. I rewound, slowed the footage down, frame by frame, and there, just for a fraction of a second, when the lights flickered. I saw it. A shadow, not a reflection, not a trick of the light. A solid, human-shaped mass standing behind me, leaning in so close I should have felt its breath on my neck. Then it was gone. That booth? No one sits there anymore. The staff avoids it. New hires take one look at it and shiver without knowing why. And sometimes, just before closing, I swear I hear a whisper from that corner. A voice, dry and cracked, slipping through the air like a dying breath. I never left. Story 2. I worked the closing shift at a small diner just off the highway. A real hole-in-the-wall kind of place. The kind that truckers stopped at when they were too tired to drive, and locals only came in when they had no other options. It had been around since the 70s, and even though the food was decent, the place had a way of making your skin crawl. The buzzing overhead lights always seemed too dim. The floor was always sticky no matter how many times we mopped it, and the air carried the faint scent of something wrong. Not spoiled food, not mold, just wrong. But I didn't ask questions. I needed the job. That night, I was alone in the front, wiping down tables and stacking chairs. The cook, Tony, had already left, and my boss, Pete, was in the office, counting the register. It was just another slow, boring night. At least, it was until I heard the sound, a dull thump. It came from the kitchen. I froze, heart hammering. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct, like something shifting inside the walk-in freezer. I exhaled, laughing nervously to myself. It's just a box falling over. Maybe Tony didn't stack them right. That made sense. But still, I hesitated. The thing is, I hated the freezer. There was something about it that unsettled me. Maybe it was the way the light inside flickered like a dying candle. Maybe it was how the air inside felt thicker than it should. Like you weren't just breathing in cold oxygen, but something else. Something unseen. Maybe it was how the door always seemed heavier on the way out. Like it didn't want to let you leave. Still, I had to check. I made my way into the kitchen, my sneakers squeaking against the tile. The freezer door loomed ahead, massive and industrial, a steel behemoth in a room of aging appliances. I grabbed the handle, bracing myself against the blast of cold air, and pulled it open. A freezing gust hit my face. My breath fogged the air as I stepped inside, hugging my arms against the sudden chill. The dim light above buzzed angrily, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. I scanned the shelves. Boxes of frozen fries, slabs of beef, tubs of ice cream. Everything looked undisturbed. I exhaled. See? Just your imagination. But as I turned to leave, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Handprints. Dozens of them. Not just on the metal walls, but on the ceiling. Small, child-sized handprints, pressed into the frost, scattered like the remnants of a nightmare. I stared, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. My mind scrambled for an explanation, but there wasn't one. No kids worked here. No kids had ever been in here, and they weren't there earlier. I was sure of it. The light flickered once. Then, with a dying buzz, it went out completely. The temperature plummeted. I could feel it. The cold bit into my skin like 1,000 tiny needles. My breath fogged thicker, heavier. Then, from the far corner, I heard it shuffle, a soft, slow movement, bare feet against frozen concrete. Something was in there with me. Panic surged through my body. I turned and lunged for the door, shoving against the heavy metal, but it wouldn't budge. No, 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 no. I pounded on it. Pete, hey, I'm stuck in here. Nothing. I banged harder, my frozen fingers slipping against the steel. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. The silence stretched thick and suffocating, and then a whisper right behind me. Help me. The voice was small, a child's voice, barely above a breath, but close enough that I felt it against the back of my neck. I screamed and threw my entire body weight against the door. It didn't move. Something brushed my ankle, a tiny, freezing hand. I lost it. I slammed my shoulder into the door again, harder, harder, until suddenly it gave. I tumbled out onto the tile floor, gasping. The warm air of the kitchen wrapped around me like a lifeline, but I didn't stop. I scrambled backward until my shoulders hit the counter, my hands shaking violently. Pete came rushing in from the office, his face twisted in confusion. Jesus, kid, what the hell's wrong with you? I pointed at the freezer, my voice caught in my throat. Pete frowned and stepped past me, peering inside. Then he turned back with a look that made my stomach drop. There's nothing in there. I knew he was lying. I could see it in his face, but I didn't care. I was done. The next day, I quit. A week later, curiosity got the better of me. I started digging, asked around, did some research, and I found it. Turns out, the diner wasn't always a diner. Back in the early 80s, it was a house. A small, run-down place owned by an older couple. They had a granddaughter, a little girl just 6 years old. One day, she went missing. The cops searched everywhere. The woods, the highway. They never found her. But I think I know where she is. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if she's still looking for a way out. Story 3. I've worked in restaurants for years. Seen all kinds of people. Angry chefs, jittery dishwashers, managers on the verge of a breakdown. The food industry is a mess of egos and exhaustion, and I thought I'd seen it all. But I'd never seen someone like him. He showed up one evening, just before the dinner rush. No one introduced him. No paperwork. He was just there, tall, thin, clean white uniform, but something about it felt off, like it had never been washed, never been worn. His face was lean, sharp, his skin stretched just a little too tight over his cheekbones. His teeth were white, perfectly straight, too straight, and he never stopped smiling. That smile, it wasn't the friendly kind, not the kind a new coworker gives when they want to make a good impression. No, this was different. Fixed, like a mask, a waxy, frozen expression that never faltered, never faded, never moved. And he never blinked. I noticed it early. When the rest of us would glance at our orders, swipe sweat off our foreheads, wipe down plates, he just stood there, staring, watching us. I tried to ignore him, told myself he was just weird, maybe socially awkward. Hell, I'd worked with worse. But then the orders started piling in, and I didn't have time to think about it anymore. That night was brutal. Packed house, back-to-back tickets, customers who wanted their steak medium rare, but sent it back because it was too pink. The kind of night that makes you question why you ever got into the restaurant business. Then came the crash. Loud, a sharp, metallic clatter, followed by a thud. I ran back into the kitchen and froze. The head chef, Marcus, was on the floor, blood pooled beneath his temple, the knife he'd been using to prep vegetables lying just inches from his fingers. His chest rose and fell in short, shallow breaths. And the new guy, he was standing over him, just standing there, hands behind his back, head cocked slightly to the side, smiling. I felt something deep in my gut, a twisting, oily kind of dread. What the hell happened? I demanded. The cook didn't move, didn't blink. He slipped, he said. His voice was quiet, flat. The kind of voice you'd use to recite a grocery list. I looked down at Marcus. The cut on his forehead was deep, too deep, clean, precise. A straight line like someone had taken a scalpel to his skin. I swallowed. The floor was dry. I backed up a step. You need to leave, I said. The cook's head tilted further, his grin stretching just a little wider. His lips barely moved, but I heard his whisper, clear as day. No, he said. I'm having fun. The kitchen felt smaller then, tighter, the air thick and heavy, like the walls were closing in. I reached for my phone, fingers shaking as I pulled it from my pocket. I looked up, and he was gone, not walking away, not turning a corner, just gone. The kitchen was silent, except for the distant chatter of customers, the sizzle of something burning on the stove. I turned in a slow circle, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Nothing. No sign of him. I don't remember much after that. Just the chaos of the ambulance arriving, the blur of paramedics loading Marcus onto a stretcher. He survived, but when I visited him in the hospital the next day, he refused to talk about what happened. Wouldn't even look at me. That should have been the end of it, but I couldn't let it go. The next morning, I went to the manager's office. Who was that new cook? I asked. The manager frowned. What new cook? I felt my stomach drop. The guy from last night, I said. Tall, skinny, weird smile. He was here when Marcus. The manager shook his head. We didn't hire anyone new. I just stood there, mouth dry, brain trying to make sense of it. I left his office in a daze and went to check the security footage. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe I was just tired, overwhelmed. Maybe there was some explanation that made sense. I played the footage from last night. Watched myself running back to the kitchen. Watched myself freeze at the sight of Marcus on the floor. Watched myself talk to nothing. There was no one there. No cook. No tall, grinning man. Just me, standing alone in the kitchen, talking to empty air. I felt sick, but then, just before the footage cut out, I saw something in the reflection of the stainless steel oven door. A figure, tall, thin, standing right behind me, and smiling. I quit that night.